My name is Fernando Escobar, and I'm talking with Robert Alexander, director, producer, executive producer, wide receiver. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
All good, man. How are you doing?
Good, good, man. My first question is Kid exposing himself and sacrificing his privacy again by having this documentary be out about him, like even more stuff revealing about him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is, a lot of stuff that he touches on in his music over the career that we analyze and document. He's going into more depth, right? So, it's like as you hear a song, there may be a line that's a theme throughout about feeling lost and feeling disconnected and feeling alone, feeling like you're a failure. And he was kind enough to go into so much more specific depth within this film.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. So, as a director making a documentary, was it hard choosing out of 10 years, a decade or more of footage, choosing what went where?
Mhm. Yeah, that's always difficult in those choices. Ultimately, it's about what plays the best. The best always wins. So, you may have a roadmap and you want to go into so much depth on, every single album and this moment in his life. But it really comes back to when we would sit down and we would talk about something, what felt the most honest to me, and then translating that into an edit, what feels the most honest and beautiful and cohesive, and then stepping back and watching it, trying to get out of the director mind and just as a viewer is what's going to resonate the most.
When you watch the final with him, reaction like?
Well, to be honest, I've never seen the final film with him. We watched it throughout. We watched a version. He was incredibly trusting and giving in this film, where Cudi was, he definitely had some ideas and some feelings, but he was very supportive and somewhat hands off. But when we watched it with him, it was important for me to, you have to take so much care in someone's story in their life. So it's not to be wasted. So it's important for me to make sure that it feels honest to him. It feels connecting to him. I can't make anything that's kind of too self-serving, it's not a big compliment, right? Obviously those elements are there, but I want to make sure that he is creating something that people are going to watch and be like, wow, he's incredibly honest and giving to us. And we appreciate that. But he did call me recently to say, he was able to finally, for the first time, separate from being the critic, from being the producer and watching it. And he just told me how incredibly important it was to him, how emotional he gets every time he watches it, how much it means to him. And that was honestly, that's it for me. You know what I mean? My job is done. If I can do a good job there and feel like he feels like it's a great representation, then I've done my job.
You got the official Cudi stamp of approval.
Yeah, man, that's it. That's it.
One of the most heartfelt lines in this whole thing to me is that when people have told him, like, with your music, you saved my life.
Yeah.
You changed my life. You saved me. And he almost doesn't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think and I you know what I think? I think when you make things, you're not supposed to really get that. I feel like a lot of artists and myself and as I make things and Cudi and our conversations about how he makes things is that you just make something to get something out of you. You make something because it's what you feel. It's like I've heard music or I've seen a film and like my representation of what that should look like and feel like is this. And often you don't always think about how people are going to respond to it. And when they do, it's a little overwhelming. You're not looking forward to that, really. You just want to make it, be done with it. So it's always a different thing when people are like, wow, that meant a lot to me. You're like, well, I was just making the thing that felt right at the time. So.
Right, right. Isn't that weird? He's almost making this music, almost saving himself or working with himself as he makes this music, but he had no idea the effect that it would make on the general public. And I could feel you're emotional even talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really beautiful thing to have the opportunity, one, just to make something, but then also to share it with people, and share it with a bigger and bigger and bigger audience of people, every time you make something. So, again, I can't speak personally for him in that, but I know in our conversations about that, it is a surprising thing and you don't expect it to have an audience and the audience to grow. Again, you just want the opportunity to keep making things. And it is an emotional thing. So it's a really big blessing to be able to just make art.
How did you connect with Cuddy to be the director, to make this film, to be the EP?
Mm-hmm.
How did this come about? Was there a pitch?
It really came through Complex. You know, they reached out to me and they asked me if I would direct it and lead this project. And I came in with them, and we just worked. Honestly, we just kind of went to work. So it was really that simple. They had talked about ideas of what they wanted to do. They presented to me. I presented them back with a vision of what I wanted to do. Originally, they had talked about doing something just on his first album, but I immediately looked at Cuddy and the cultural iconic impact that I recognized and received with him when I was a youth, and said, this is so much more. This is really about a critical study on a creative journey over a long period of time.
Robert, isn't it a trip to, like, in your career where one minute you're listening to this music, right? You're a friend of you listen to Man on the Moon and to all this music, and next thing you know, you're the director for his doc.
Yeah, it's cool. It's I've been incredibly blessed with the people that I've been able to work with in a lot of different capacities, and I think that it's a beautiful thing because when you do admire someone, you get to come in, and it just makes it that much more of an enjoyable experience. But to me, it's very important to do the best I can to reduce the fanboy, separate, and say, well, what's my responsibility here, as a filmmaker, and what's important for me to make sure that I'm excited for, that the talent is excited for, and the audience will be excited for.
As you were putting together the doc and you're pitching Complex, and your thoughts and ideas of what Kid is and what he's done his whole career, and after you finished the project, how did you think of him? Was there anything differently that you thought of him, or that you discovered? I know you discovered and learned, but like, what was your takeaway now that you did all this and knowing more about Cuddy?
I think that he's an incredibly complex, beautiful human being. His talent level was just beyond what I understood from afar. Seeing him up close and how he works and how he interacts with ideas was incredibly exciting and motivating and inspiring. And just that, he's a star. You can see some people are a star, and his ability to, like, turn on and off charm is this really interesting thing that you see in people of a certain ability star level. And it was just a really cool thing to be able to see the duality of that, but also see his willingness to say, I am now going to turn off the star thing, and I'm just going to be incredibly raw and honest with you. And I'm just super blessed that we got to get to that place together.
You did an amazing job. It was so heartfelt, so much. I learned so much from it. So
cool.
Thank you. Killer job. It's just like,
cool,
man, you hit a grand slam there. It's just like, it was so neatly done, kind of jealous. Like, oh, I want to do something like that. I want to do one like that. It's so badass. So congratulations. It was amazing.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate it and appreciate the time today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you too. Thank you for your time.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.